live stream, and apologies for the tardiness there. It's actually all my fault. But we have here the CEO of Hathor Network, Jan, very special guest, a new scalable distributed ledger for real world applications. That's the Hathor Network. They're solving the problem of scalability with a novel architecture using both DAG and blockchain intertwined. The Hathor Network is a proof of work blockchain combining directed acyclic graph DAG with current blockchain technology. All of that is very technical, so I'd rather open the stage for Jan to give us a little bit of background about himself and the company as well.
Thank you, Ignacio. It's a pleasure to speak here. Yeah, as you said, Hathor Network has this unique architecture, which is a combination of the DAG, the direct acyclic graph, of with transactions and a traditional blockchain intervened. So we do have mining as well. The DAG was first proposed by an Argentinian researcher as a way to solve the scalability issues for blockchain technologies. It was Sergio Lerner, I think, back in 2015. It went a bit mainstream, let's say, with IOTA and the Tango, but they still had some problems. I think to the day they have problems with the coordinator and all that. So Marcelo was our CTO back in the time. He was doing his PhD, and he's proposed his architecture combining a DAG of transactions and a blockchain. And that's how we got started. So that was back in 2018. We started coding. And then in 2020, that's when we launched the network. January 3rd, 2020. It's the same Genesis block data as Bitcoin, just 11 years later. So we've been running for over 2 years now. And yeah, apart from the scalability issues that we see, they were a problem back then. They're still a problem nowadays. Also, the complexity of blockchain networks, it's very hard for them to integrate. And I guess you guys come to try also to solve this problem by providing labor, by providing people on companies. But we see that it's still a big problem to be able to integrate into blockchain networks. And this is also something that we try to solve by having a simpler to use, simpler to integrate blockchain network. Myself personally, I've been involved with the project since the beginning, so since 2018. Before that, I'd purchased a few, cryptos. Not a lot of them, to be honest. I've never found, not the time nor the interest to, follow a lot of different coins and try to, let's say, invest and profit out of it. So I bought a few coins, held them for a while, I think, then sold it. I think that was around 2016 or 17. So when I first started working actually with blockchain, I couldn't say that I was an expert or had any deep knowledge about it. So I was actually a novice when I first started working on it.
Thank you for the full intro, and it's fascinating. I think that overall, you're right. We are trying to solve for increasing the total supply of talent in Web3, which is needed, and also a difficulty is the scalable and the adoption of different infrastructure ones, which are very complicated to use and have those scalability issues, for example. But so that people could have it in very simple terms, because there's all these names, right? And I would say that Ethereum is the most well known, but there's Polkadot, Avalanche, Cardano, and I would say that there's more and more layer ones, right? So how would you describe your differentiation in you guys and the rest of the people in the space?
Yeah, sure. I think that there's something important when you talk about scalability, because we have a lot of blockchains that they claim, let's say, 50,000 transactions per second or even more than that, and it's decentralization as well. So I mean, you can make it a very performatic blockchain if you run it just with a few nodes, or if you require everyone that runs a blockchain node, like a full node, they use high performance hardware. So it would be very easy for us. Scalability is also it's also related. You have to also take into account decentralization, and for us, what Bitcoin has, it's let's say the golden standard, because anyone can run a Bitcoin node. It's very light, and that's what we also aim for. So anyone should be able to run a Hathor node, and we have scalability even in that scenario where anyone can run. You have thousands and thousands of nodes and all that. So I think that's something to take into account. But I mean, apart from that, I'd say that the simplicity and easy to use, it's one of the our main differentiators. So, for instance, tokenization, which is one of the main features, it's very easy for anyone to just create a token, start using it, trading it, and there are no fees for transactions. So, you can just build your use case, create your token, start transacting it without any fees. There are not many entry barriers, which is what we see with other chains where you need very specialized people to start creating your own crypto product, your own blockchain product.
That makes a lot of sense. I quite agree with you that sometimes, especially on the gas fees, it doesn't make sense that people use kind of like a toll booth to use the internet, right? Then, I mean, that's a massive friction for the mass adoption of layer ones, and a lot of them have it, right? So that's super interesting. More getting into, I'd like to talk more about custom tokens. You just brought social tokens. We have explored professional identity tokens and things along those lines that we'll experiment with later on as we evolve our kind of our Web3 social network. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about these custom tokens a little bit more, and nano contracts.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that creating a token is the first step of the process, right? So tokenization is the basis of most, let's say, blockchain crypto products. So the first thing you need is to create a token, and that's the part we make it super easy. Anyone can create a token from their own wallet, just a few clicks, and then what you're going to use this token for. That's the second part, I think, and it's the part that like any layer one is not going to solve. Right? It's up to the builder, to the people creating this product, that they have to attach, let's say, the value, what's it's useful for. So we obviously being a layer one, our let's say our mission is to provide the tools and provide a blockchain where it's very easy for anyone to get started in creating their own products. And as you mentioned, also the nano contracts, they are part of this vision because there are our own versions of the smart contracts. As I said, one of the things that we were trying to do is to reduce the barriers, make it less complex for people and for companies, especially to adopt crypto, when we see that smart contracts are still, basically one of the most complex parts of it. When we talk about bugs and exploits, it's not usually because there's, let's say, a bug in Ethereum. It's usually because there's a bug in a smart contract or something related to that. So what we're trying to do with nano contract, it's kind of our ethos of making blockchain easy to use, is having this simplified version of smart contracts that most people can just use and integrate and create their own projects around. So that's basically the
That's incredible. I mean, it's very much needed. I would say that from an external view, I would say your biggest challenge is visibility and distribution, right? As I think the kind of the race for the layer one infrastructure layer is quite crowded. It's also, I think, the most attractive for VCs because historically it represents the biggest potential in terms of returns. So I think it's also how you navigate, current conditions. But staying a little bit away of that, I'd also love to know this. Apart from all the existing technology that I have now, what are some of the exciting products and capabilities that you
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are new features being released, let's say, ongoing, right? Obviously, being layer one, we're very conservative in terms of adding new features or making changes because, I mean, it's the blockchain. So whenever you make a change, it's hard when to roll back. You have to be super careful. So especially, I'd say on the protocol itself, things move a little slower because we're always making sure that things are very well tested before they go live. We also have wallets. In the wallets, obviously, also it's very sensitive place, but things move a bit faster. So recently we had in-app notifications that were being rolled out. As you mentioned, the nano contract itself is one of the most anticipated features that we're going to have in the network. Also, personally, I'm very excited about the web wallets that are being developed. So anyone's going to be able to have browser wallets connected to their regular wallets by using Wallet Connect. And I see that as unlocking a lot of potential use cases and easy to use. The UX is going to become much better for most users.
Oh, we'll have to chat about that another time as we're looking also for wallet capabilities. Oh, for a platform now that we've had almost 4.7 million downloads, and actually, I want to talk a little bit more about the current environment, which I think is interesting for layer ones as well as us, right? You see that there's tough regulatory environment coming down the pipeline. The SEC is coming lawsuits. This is going to take multi years. Where do you guys stand as a layer one on the security versus utility token point of view? Do you feel very confident about it? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to speculate, right? I think that's for the regulators to say, and even more lawyers. Obviously, HCR wrote the thing, so it has utility within the network. But I mean, I'd say the regulatory environment is a bit hostile, primarily in the U.S. In other jurisdictions, we're seeing much more favorable positions from the regulators. So in Europe, we had the new MiCA regulation that's been going forward in the Congress and the European Parliament, and even in Brazil, that's where I'm from, and most of our people in their company they're from Brazil. Brazil is, let's say, in the forefront of crypto regulation. So um, the CBDC project is moving very fast there, which is spearheaded by the central bank. Also, we've had other tests, even ourselves, Hathor Network, we're part of an STO platform in Brazil that's been running for over a year now. It's approved by the regulator by the Brazilian SEC. So you have some bonds issued on this platform, roughly around $40 million in tokenized bonds. And as I said, it's been running over 1 year. It's a sandbox environment. So you see that in other jurisdictions, there is a lot of activity going on in crypto. So I mean, obviously, the situation in the U.S. it's like we're not as good as we'd like, but we're seeing other places, other countries trying to take advantage of that to attract more technology, more people, more companies.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're
I
seeing
completely
that.
agree. Sorry, I said I completely agree. I think it's a great opportunity for the UK and Europe to step up with more clear regulation and attract all this innovation to their continents and countries, right? If the US, which usually their biggest pool is that everyone wants to innovate and have their they champion entrepreneurs, they want to kill crypto innovation. I mean, that's their prerogative, but at least we'll get some clarity in a few years, and I think the best way to do it is to try to play by the book no matter what.
Yeah, and
And
I think that, as you said, it's we're gonna have clarity. I think that's the important part, right? I think that the hardest part right now is the uncertainty. If we do get some clarity, even if it's not the most favorable one that we have, like the one that we want, like the perfect regulations for crypto entrepreneurs, even then, it's better than the current conditions, right? Because at least you know the rules that you have to play by. The problem is that they're very uncertain, and then the regulators decide something one day, and then they change their mind. So I think that's kind of the worst scenario. So at least we're having some discussions already there in the US more and more. You have more players discussing that in Congress, the SEC, and all that. So we should have. It's not a fast process, but at least we should have some more clarity within, let's say, a year or a few years, which is definitely better than what we have.
I agree, and hopefully it's a little bit more swift, and maybe with the presidential race coming soon in the U.S., that also streamline things along. That's just a wishful thinking. And I want to get into the talent part of the question for our guests, which is, how do you guys currently go about hiring, about expanding your team? How does the Hathor Network team come to be?
So there are many issue routes. I mean, obviously the first is within our own network. Let's say we're a tech-focused company. We have a lot of technical people, and I believe this our own people can refer others to join us. And also we've used before some recruiters as well, some recruitment companies. So those are the two main routes that we have for recruitment. One thing that I like to say, it's also I think interesting to notice is that for us, having crypto experience, it's not necessarily a must. I think that 90% of the people that we ever hired uh, hadn't worked in crypto before. Even like I said myself, when I started working on crypto, like on blockchain back in 2018, I was like a novice in that field. You know, I hadn't studied it deeply before. I hadn't done any project in crypto before. For us, obviously, the most important thing, like when you talk about engineers, is that they have, the strong engineering background, the fundamental, and also business people also they have their fundamentals on their fields very strongly, and then they can learn the blockchain space, the crypto space, because it's a very new space as well, right? So if you require people with, let's say, 5 years experience, you reduce the pool so much that it's very hard to find talent.
That's completely right, Jan, and that's the beauty of it because it's a new space. Resumes and long times of experiences are more obsolete than being capable of showcasing that what you're capable of learning, passionate about, and you're smart and that you're adaptable to new technologies that change fast. So I think that's part of the beauty of our industry.
Yeah, yeah. As you said, the things are changing very fast. So maybe someone that was working on crypto in 2017, things have changed so much that it doesn't make sense that necessarily that person is going to fit in. It's a good fit for
Part
this
of the
industry.
part of the skills you need to have as a professional in this space is that you actually need the amount of research and learning and reskilling and upskilling you need to be constantly doing is much higher than in other industries that are not as high tech. So that's actually a very, very, very good point. And Jan, we've come to the end of our interview. I want to thank you for your time and Hathor Network's time today. If you want to tell our audience, now that they're going to be watching now and on YouTube later, where they can find you, where they can follow, how they can get involved with the Hathor Network.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks for everyone for watching. Our website is Hathor.network. There you're going to be able to find our media channels, community channels, our Telegram, our Twitter, and then you can keep track what's going on in Hathor.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I want to thank all our Bondis for tuning in for another week. And again, thank you, Jan, for your time. Looking forward to talking more with Hathor Network about how we can collaborate. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.